This episode is made possible by the generosities of our listeners. Thank you.
Welcome to the Creation Science
for Kids
show. Are you sure you know what the first temptation was? Did you really hear it correctly? We're starting in on the techniques the enemy throws at all of us that are as powerful today as they were in the Garden of Eden. Then it's time to let you know about an exciting little book that the Institute for Creation Research has published just for you, and finish up with the smallest birds of all, the hummingbird. Praise the Lord. I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart, in the company of the upright, in the congregation. Great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them. Full of splendor and majesty is his work, and his righteousness endures forever. He has caused his wondrous works to be remembered. The Lord is gracious and merciful. Psalm 111, verses 1 through 4. This is episode 61 of the podcast where we learn about Jesus, our Creator, and his amazing world. Hi, I'm Sherry Fields, your host, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Samuel.
Hi.
And Timothy.
Hi.
To follow along with what we're looking at, check out the show notes, creationscience4kids.com/doubt. So we're back in Genesis chapter 3, and we're going to go back to verse 1 again and look at the rest of the verse. Timothy, would you read verse 1 for us, please?
Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden?
Okay. First of all, who did he talk to?
Eve.
Yeah, he went to the woman. Why do you think he did that? What do you think would have happened if he'd gone right up to Adam and said, I want you to disobey God and follow me? What would Adam have done?
Adam would not have done it.
He probably would have.
We would take out a stick and whack him off the tree.
So if he'd been straight up and just said, I want you to follow me and rebel against God, would it have worked very well?
No.
No. So the serpent, Satan, our enemy, the adversary, he knows how to get underneath our will and get us to change. So what is it? First he went to the woman who was supposed to depend on Adam and who wasn't in charge, and he decided that she was, for whatever reason, the most likely to listen. And in fact, as Paul points out in the New Testament, he did get Eve to believe what his lies were. Adam knew perfectly well what he was doing and chose to do it anyway after Eve had. Eve believed the lie. Satan was right that going for the woman was a smart way to go to get what he wanted. Okay, and then did he say right away, why don't you just disobey God? Who cares what God says? What did he say first? What's that first thing? Yea?
Yea, hath God said.
Wait, stop there. What's that mean? Hath God said? If you were saying that in your own words, what would you say?
I don't know.
Okay, how about this? Did God really tell you this? The very first thing he did, before he said anything about the fruit, he started with, did God actually say this? He started with planting a seed of doubt in Eve's mind. Doubt is still a very, very powerful thing. We have questions. And one of the things that you'll learn, if you talk to someone who knows a lot about any subject, they will tell you, I don't know everything that could possibly be known. I have questions. I wish there was more information. Doesn't matter whether you're talking about how a plant works or about criminal cases. There's J. Warner Wallace. He's helped find some murderers who'd gotten away with it for like 20, 30 years and helped get them to sometimes even confess that they really had done it. But he said, we always have questions. People studying the Bible who spend their whole life and get paid to study the Bible still have questions. Does that mean that we can't trust anything?
No.
It better not. Otherwise, nobody could trust anything. If we're going to let our doubts win, we'll be left with absolutely nothing. I wanted to show you guys, now this is pretty serious, how powerful doubt is. I'll have a link to this in the show notes. Creation Science, the number 4kids.com/doubt. And I've got an article here that Ken Ham from Answers in Genesis wrote. And he found some quotes of people who had been following God. This one guy here, let me read to you. He was a youth minister, so he was working with children. We've got people like that at our church. That's their job. He was getting paid to do this. And he had somebody say to him, what did all the carnivores eat on Noah's Ark for the entire year? And he couldn't answer that question. He decided any answer paled in comparison to the obvious. It never happened. So because he couldn't figure it out, he decided the Bible had lied. And then he went to how could the creation account work? And he says, I began to dismiss creationism as a possibility of the origin of life. Now he's an atheist. He thinks we are going to move to be a secular humanistic society because he thinks there are no answers in the Bible. Isn't that sad?
Yes.
It's very, very sad. There's another guy or another person commented and said, my first block was Cain's wife. He thought there were only 3 people on the planet, so who could Cain marry? And that means the Bible can't be true. And that's why they became an atheist. Doubt is very powerful. It is something that you will face. When you get out in the world, there are billions of people who do not accept the Bible and say, how can you know for sure? Why do you trust that moldy old book written by goat herders thousands of years ago? That can't possibly have the truth. It's just the same as it was way back at the beginning. Now, Satan, when he was talking to Eve, didn't say, yay, do you really think God exists? Why didn't he do that? Would Eve have believed him if he'd said, no, I'm not sure if God exists?
No.
Why not?
I don't.
What did God do? We haven't actually read about it yet, but we know that God did something with Adam and Eve before they sinned. When they were hiding, it mentions that God came when the wind started to blow, and that's something that he would do. Eve knew perfectly well God existed. She had heard his voice. She knew he was real. So that's not what Satan tempted her with. So he said, did God really say? And then what did he start talking about?
Ye shall not eat of every tree in the garden.
Yeah, he started out by saying, did God tell you you can't eat from any tree? What do you think he was doing that for? Got any guesses?
No.
What if somebody came and said, do your parents not let you have anything fun to eat? What would they really be trying to say? Do they like your parents?
No.
No, they wouldn't. They would be somebody trying to make
You feel bad.
Yeah, and as if your parents were
Mean.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Right. As if God, and so going back to the verse here with God, he was trying to make God look like a meanie who wouldn't share anything. But he knew she would respond back. Now, that in itself, that is one of the hardest things. I know I have a very hard time with this. The best thing Eve should have done was what? When the serpent started talking to her, what should she have done as soon as it happened?
I don't know, taking out a stick, whack him.
Well, no, ladies don't do that. Well, some of us do if we're going to protect our children, but she didn't have anybody to protect. What should she have done? What would have been wise? What do we all wish she had done when she saw that snake talk or heard the snake talk?
Scream and run.
Yeah, maybe not the screaming, but yeah, if she had run away and gone to Adam and they'd said, God, help, there's this strange creature talking to us and telling us that you're mean. If she had done that, we would not be where we are now, would we?
Nope, we would be.
But it is extremely tempting to say, I'm smart enough to handle this. I know the truth. I can talk back. And as we'll see next time, that's what Eve does. Satan is so subtle. And none of us can trust ourselves to handle it, to be smart enough to respond to his seeds of doubt and his desire to engage us on how intelligent we are, because we want so badly to be smart, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't want to feel like, oh, I need to have help from my family, my parents, or from my husband or pastor or even God, to remember to say, wait a minute, God, I'm not smart enough to handle this by myself. I have to do that. It's actually easier for me to do online when somebody leaves me a comment on Facebook or wherever. It's easier for me to say, oh, Lord, please help. But even there, I generally have started typing out a response, and then I stop myself and say, wait a minute. I don't want to be like Eve. I want to be like Jesus. And Jesus, when he was talking to Satan, where did he go to first? Did Jesus say, well, I'm smart enough to figure that out, and I don't need bread to eat?
The Bible.
Yes. What did he always start when Satan says, why don't you turn that rock into bread?
He quoted a verse.
That's right. He said, it is written. It is written. It is written. That's what we have to do to make sure, because we are just as vulnerable to this temptation as Eve ever was. And luckily, Jesus showed us what to do when that mean old enemy comes to get us. Okay, now we're going to move to something a lot more fun. A couple weeks ago, I saw that there's a brand new book put out by ICR, the Institute for Creation Research, and it is called
Dinosaurs. God's
Mysterious
creatures.
And it says Science for Kids, which makes me wonder if they're planning a whole series. I didn't ask them about that. But I wrote to them and said, hey, I'd love to review this, tell my podcast and my blog people about it. So could I have a copy? And they said, sure thing. Came real quick. It's, what would you say this book looks like? Is it a giant book?
No.
No.
It's square and it is small.
Yeah, it's about, 17 centimeters, 6 inches on a side, something like that.
5 inches on each.
Just 5? Mm-hmm. Are you sure you measured it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's smaller than I thought. So it's a very nice size for holding, and it's bright colors. It's got green and orange. It's all the drawings are done with like a black ink marker and then watercolors, but bright colors, and there are pictures on every single page, so it breaks it up nicely. Okay, and then it's about, what was the title again? Dinosaurs. So we kind of looked through it, and I read the whole thing, and going to let them know there are a couple things that kind of bug me, but that's just because I'm an editor, and it kind of, I wished I could have had my hands on this before they published it. But they cover the days of creation and just mention what day were dinosaurs created on.
6.
Day 6, the same day as humans. So when they tell you that dinosaurs and people did not exist together, do you know why they do that? Do they get it from the Bible?
No.
Absolutely not. They get it from
themselves.
And well, they didn't just make it up out of thin air. Why is it that the secular people, the evolutionists, say that dinosaurs existed way before people? Do you know?
Because as people evolved, that is thing.
Yeah, and do you know why they say that?
No.
Yeah, one of the things I actually wish they'd done a little more on was on the fossil record, where things are buried deeper, and they say the deeper it is, the older they are, and dinosaurs are buried way deeper than we get any human fossils, because pretty much all the human fossils we have are from after the flood, so they're right up near the surface. But dinosaur fossils are buried further down, above lots and lots of sea creatures, but well below any human-type fossils. But they have, it's nice big print. For the most part, the way they wrote did not bug me. There was only one sentence. It was like, are you talking to a 2-year-old or an 8-year-old? But most of it, I thought they did a great job on how they handled it. So they talk about all different things like, what is a dinosaur? The different plants and animals that we know had to live at the same time because they're buried in the same rock layers. So here, tell me what about these pictures. This is one of the more interesting ones. What are some of the fossils that we've found in the same layers? What's that?
Mouse.
Yeah, it's some sort of rat-type creature. They have it pretty much like a rat or an opossum, but we have to guess what color it was. What else?
A goose.
Mm-hmm.
A turtle. A parrot.
and a magnolia tree blossom, so from a magnolia tree. And these are horsetails. That's well known to be a living fossil. And then they talk about how we've found diseases in dinosaur bones, that one of them obviously had a tumor in it, a bone tumor, and different things were definitely going on. So to have those fossilized before sin makes absolutely no sense. And they have a bit on where the fossils went. They show my 3-year-old, she actually was kind of fascinated. They got an articulated dinosaur. So it was buried with all its bones in the same position, it not all scattered around. And what's true about this long-necked dinosaur? What looks odd about those bones? Do you think it looked like that as it was running around?
No.
What's different about it?
Its neck is bent up.
Bent way over so that it's almost got its forehead by its tail. Yeah, and what it points out, and I'm glad they did, is that lots of these long-necked dinosaurs, when they're buried in position where the bones aren't scattered, have their necks bent around. Do you remember what it is that we know can cause that kind of arching of the neck way back?
No.
No? Okay. They say it can show that they choked in mud. Now, I know I did an article a while back where they took some chickens, and actually after the chickens died, they dunked them in water, and they did the same thing. They show the different fossils and about soft tissue in dinosaurs, and even that we've found, oh, this is cool. Why did they color the dinosaur this color? First, what color is it?
Green.
Greens and browns with a yellowish belly. Psittacosaurus, which they don't tell you how to pronounce until later. Why did they color it that way? Why didn't they color it orange and blue?
They found on the skin of it that still had some color.
Right. It still had the chemicals, so we could tell what color it actually was. We're not having to guess that time. And then I wish they actually said, but it looks like they found some dinosaur eggs that were colored like, what color is that?
Looks like a potato.
Well, that's the shape, but what about the color?
It's reddish maroon.
Yeah, it's like beet colored eggs. And I wish they were a little clearer. And that's actually something I'm going to tell them. But I'm pretty sure that those eggs actually had some of the color left, so that those dinosaur eggs would have looked like Easter eggs dyed with beets. I think that's just fascinating. Okay, and the second half of the book was a whole bunch of different individual dinosaurs, has finally their pronunciations and some interesting things about them, when they were first discovered and where and how big they were and the facts that we know about them. And they have them divided into the different categories. So it's actually, they probably only have about 30 of the individual species, but still for somebody who's getting into dinosaurs but isn't that great a reader, this is a pretty decent book to go ahead and give them. And of course they have the gospel at the back, for which I'm very grateful, and they have different articles and things at the back that they recommend for you to check out. So it's not quite the most perfect book. It's not as much fun as something from National Geographic, but it's certainly something you can trust to be safe and fascinating. If you've got somebody who's reading on, I would say to read on your own, this is 3rd to 4th grade level reading. So it's not something you can just hand to your 6-year-old unless they're a dinosaur geek. Then they might enjoy it. But certainly if you want to read it with them, this is a great book, and we certainly enjoyed it. And I'm not giving it back to them. I'm going to type out the notes that I wrote instead of sending it back, because we're having fun with our copy of the book. So you'll want to check it out. You can go straight to the ICR website and find it, or I'll have a link directly to their product page in the show notes. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you have for us today, Samuel?
Hummingbirds. Hummingbirds live in the Americas, and they are the smallest birds alive. They range from 3 to 5 inches, which is 7 to 13 centimeters. They only weigh about 2 to 20 grams, which is a weight of 1 to 8 pennies.
Yeah, that's not very heavy at all, is it?
There are 300 species, and most of them live in America.
South America.
South America.
How do their colors work? Are they dyed different colors?
No, they work like soap bubbles.
Yeah, I think that's kind of cool because you can have soap that's yellow, and when you blow the bubbles, it has all the colors of the rainbow in the bubble, even though it was originally yellow or green or blue, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a way of refracting the light that the feathers work.
Hummingbirds remember every one of 1,000 flowers they drink the nectar from.
Uh-huh.
And they can calculate how long it will take for them to get the nectar.
Refill, yeah, that's pretty cool. Their brains take up more space, even though they're still tiny brains, in comparison to other birds, are a lot heavier. So they've got pretty powerful brains.
They mostly drink nectar and they eat bugs for protein.
Yeah, even they have to eat their protein sometimes.
They can hear and see better than we can.
Uh-huh.
But they can't smell.
Yeah, so the flowers, if God was designing a flower and he wanted the hummingbirds to find him, what would he do to make the flowers attractive to hummingbirds? Would he make them smell really sweet?
No.
No, he'd make them
really dark
or bright colors.
Bright.
Uh-huh. All right, do you remember reading about how they drink? So they've got that long stretched out beak that can go way down deep in a flower. And do they just go like a straw with their beak?
No.
No, what do they do?
They use their tongue.
Mm-hmm. And there was a study that came out just a couple of years ago. I remember when it was new. And they were so excited to figure out what it is. What does their tongue do? Do you remember?
It's shaped like a fork.
Uh-huh. And what does it have on the ends of it? These hairs. And the hairs will open up and grab some of the nectar and then close and pull it back in. So it kind of, if you open up, you stretch out your arm and your fingers and think of grabbing something and pulling it back towards you. That's kind of how it does it, except crazy super fast. What else is super cool about hummingbirds?
Their heartbeat can go up to 1,260 beats per minute.
Yeah, that is crazy fast. How many seconds are there in a minute?
60.
Yeah, that's 21 times a second. That's crazy. Can you move 21 times a second? I can't. Okay, what else? What about their wings?
Their wings can beat 70 times per second.
70 times. So their heart is beating 21 times a second, and their wings are beating 70 times a second. Do you remember hearing the hummingbird when it's flying? What does it sound like? It sounds like a big bug going bzzz because its wings are going so fast. Yeah, and then it's breathing.
Its breathing can
250 times.
250 times per minute.
Yeah. And when it's drinking, okay, so there, I knew we had that. So when it's licking, how fast is it licking that nectar out?
13 licks per second.
Okay, so this is all happening so fast, it's hard to even think of how fast it's going. Oh, and how hot is its body temperature when it's awake and flying around?
107 degrees Fahrenheit.
Uh-huh, which is?
41.7 degrees
Celsius.
Yeah,
that's 10 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than ours. So that's quite a bit hotter. Now, what's crazy about when they take a nap? When they go to sleep at night, do they stay like that? Are they moving super quick and are they running super hot? No, they actually go into like a super slow sleep called torpor. And how much do they slow down?
Their heart beats 50 times
per minute. So it goes from 250 to 50. And its temperature drops to
70 degrees Fahrenheit,
which is
21 degrees Celsius.
Yeah. If you run into one like that, they look like it and act like they're dead. I thought this was cool. So it can be hard to wake up in the morning, can't it? Mm-hmm. And you want a nice drink. How long does it take for a hummingbird to really get going?
1 hour.
Yeah. So you just tell your mom, hey, I'm a hummingbird. It takes me a long time to get going. But when I do, then I'm all chipper and ready to go. But it takes them a whole hour from the time they first start waking up to when they're ready to fly around because they have to speed up so much. Yeah, in fact, I read that if a hummingbird is weak or really sick, sometimes when they go into torpor, they never do wake up. That's enough to kill them. So that's kind of sad. But it's pretty cool how God helps them conserve energy, because that's why they have to have those 1,000 different flowers that they know where they are, because they have to eat so often. Do you know how many meals they have to eat a day?
8 meals a day.
Yeah. Okay, so this was one of the things I thought was cool. So we know their brains are heavier. It's 4.2% of their body weight. Their heart is 2.5%. And their flying muscles, so the muscles around their wings and the upper body, make up 30% of their weight. Do you know how much the muscles we have for our arms take up of our weight?
No.
5%. So if you think of a superhero with his huge upper body and he's so strong, I bet that still wouldn't be as big of muscles as hummingbirds. But what do? They're beating their wings super fast. What can a hummingbird do flying that no other bird can? Do you remember?
Fly backwards.
Yeah, they can fly backwards. And what about when they're drinking from flowers? What are they doing then? There's nothing to sit on. There's not a branch right in front of the flower for them to sit on to drink. So what do they have to do so they can get the drink and not have to keep bonking their heads?
They stand on the flower?
No, they don't. They're just flying, holding still. And they can even fly upside down. So they can fly any direction, forward, up, down. When you're watching one, it's not as surprising because it's easy to forget that they're a bird and think that they're just a big bug. And bugs can often do that, but hummingbirds are the only birds that can do it. Okay, so what else was cool? Oh yeah, in the eastern U.S., east of the Mississippi, the only ones that have their nests are the ruby-throated. And where do they spend the winter?
Mexico.
Right, so how do they get there? Do they go around through Texas?
No, they fly across the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, and what is the Gulf of Mexico? It's a big piece of the ocean. Very big. How far is it across?
500 miles.
Yeah, which is 800 kilometers. And how long does it take a hummingbird to get across from one side to the other?
20 hours.
Right. So I calculated. I took the time and the distance, and that works out to 25 miles per hour. That's 40 kilometers that they go nonstop. And what's crazy? They cannot eat when they're going across. There are no flowers floating around in the middle. There aren't enough islands. They don't go around by the Caribbean. They go straight across. They can double their body weight. Do you remember seeing that? That they can eat so much that they get to be pretty heavy when they start. And when they land 20 hours later, they weigh half as much as they did when they started. Isn't that incredible?
Yes.
But God designed them and they know what to do. So that's a pretty cool migration they do. Then what's the other really cool migration? This one out west. Do you remember how to say that word?
Oh.
Rufous. And the way that's spelled is different from the dog's name. And it means that kind of red, like the breast of a robin redbreast. But it's actually got it on its head. The rufous hummingbird goes all the way from
Mexico to Alaska.
Yeah. Now, that brings me, I wanted to show you, if you run into one with a band on its leg, you can report it to the government so they can find out that it's alive and where it's gone. So I went looking and found the Southeastern Arizona Bird Observatory has a cool page with lots of great pictures because they have all kinds of hummingbirds that come through. 10 species. And so they've got a picture. What color does that hummingbird have on its head?
Blue.
Yeah, they're holding a blue one, and its head is just bigger than that man's thumb. And there's a rufous. See, it's actually got the red across its throat. And it looks like it got dusted with iron across its back. And so here's how they catch them. How do they get the hummingbird so they can put the band on them? First, they have to get them to come close, so they put out
a flower.
Well, it's a hummingbird feeder with the sugar water. And then they have, what is this around it?
It looks like a boat.
A boat? It's a sort of circular net. So they have it the net is up high, the hummingbirds come in, and then they drop the net real quick. They said it's really hard to catch them because the normal mist nets that they'll put out to catch other birds, and then they'll get trapped in this sort of pocket. Hummingbirds, because they see so well and are so smart and such amazing flyers, they won't get trapped. And even sometimes with this way of doing it, there are some hummingbirds that they know, they watch them come, but they manage to escape. But they drop the net down and then they carefully catch them. Now, there's the band. What's that band look like?
It looks circular.
Yeah, it looks like a bead. And what size is it? What's it sitting on?
A penny.
Yeah, and I can see it's got the year 2004 on the penny, and the band looks like it's the width of the 2 zeros. It's that small. So if Abraham Lincoln there were to open his mouth wide, he could almost fit that ring into his mouth, couldn't he? It's that small. So, and it talks about they have to make it out of special, super lightweight aluminum. The person who's going to band them has to get it all ready, make sure it's soft and smooth where it's not going to catch on anything. Because once they've got it on the hummingbird, they said the oldest lady hummingbird that they'd been watching, they caught her again 10 years after she was first banded. So she was a wild hummingbird and lived for at least 10 years. Now, this is a cool picture. The forehead of a young rufous hummingbird carries a thick layer of pollen. See how it looks like it's got white feathers right there next to its beak? It's actually pollen, and that's one of the things. They'll take a sample of that and know what kind of flowers the birds have been visiting. So they're pretty sure it's from a native red morning glory. There's a bird getting ready to be released. So if you ever run into a bird, I don't know how with a hummingbird, you would need one of those nets or you wouldn't be able to see the numbers on it. But if there's a wild bird that has a band, there is a website you can go to and a phone number you can call. Because the United States and Canada both keep track of their wild birds. We want to know where they're going and what they're doing. And lots of hummingbirds head through in migration, heading north and south, because lots of bugs are in Alaska in the summer, but then it would get bitterly cold and all the hummingbirds would die if they didn't leave. Okay, what do you know about baby hummingbirds? Do you remember what they make their nests out of?
No.
Grasses and spider webs. They'll actually steal a spider web to stick their nest together. And what do they put in the nest?
2 eggs.
2 eggs. And how long does it take the babies once they've hatched?
3 weeks.
Only 3 weeks. Now, I saw here, it mentioned that it's just the moms who raise the babies. And I actually found another website that talked more about why hummingbirds are very lonely. The dads don't help, and the dads will also fight. They'll all fight for their territory. And this is something that would not have been true in the Garden of Eden, but it is true now. What is it that hummingbirds have to have all the time? What do you need? If you're running around all day, you get very, very
thirsty
and
tired.
Yeah, but what do you need?
Food.
Hummingbirds, because they need so much food, they guard those flowers that they're remembering and know how long it takes to fill up. They do not want any other hummingbird to come in and drink from their flowers. And that's why they don't even help together with the babies. They're like, you get out of my territory, Buster. I'll take care of the babies, and because I want these flowers. You go away, find your own spot. So they're very, very lonely the way the world is now because there aren't enough flowers. So that's something, if you live in an area with hummingbirds, having a feeder, planting plenty of flowers to attract them also helps them so that they can, like on the banding site, it showed that there were several hummingbirds together because there's so much sugar water. They didn't have to fight to get enough food. They could share and have friends. So that's something that's changed since the fall, which is very sad. But hummingbirds are so beautiful, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. What was it that made you want to do a report on hummingbirds?
I like how small they are.
Yeah.
Don't forget, you can find links to all the things we've talked about today by visiting the show notes page, creationscience4kids.com/doubt or /061 for episode 61.
While you're there, I'd like to ask for your help. If you know someone who would enjoy listening to this podcast and checking out my website, would you let them know for us? Every article I do, including today's show notes, has share buttons to make it super easy for you to pass on to your friends on Facebook or by email. You have amazing power to help your friends find the truth for themselves.
Plus, if you want to encourage us, leaving the show a rating on the Apple Podcasts directory is a great way to do that and help families looking for new podcasts to find us. Thanks.
Are you on Facebook? We have a super secret clubhouse over there. We share photos and videos of cool things God has made, and I share some behind-the-scenes info about what we're doing. You can even meet Squirt, our mascot. If you go to my Facebook page and message me, I'll help you get plugged right in. Has this show been a blessing to your family? Running this podcast and ministry isn't free, plus it takes a lot of time. We now have a Patreon account where you can help us out, like Pastor Bryant Bretworth is. Thank you. If just a few of our listeners help, even with just $1 a month, it will help cover the rest of our basic expenses, and anything above that will help us improve things for the future. I've thought of a few cool rewards for you, including helping you send us your own recording, and I'm thinking of making CD collections as well. Visit cs4ks.com to find out how you can get involved.
Do you like science? Got a subject you want to learn about? Or maybe you like telling stories?
Remember, it's super easy to turn your smartphone into a recorder, and if you send me a report, story, joke, or interesting idea, I might use it in a future show. Head over to cs4ks.com to find out what to do.
Well, this finishes up our show for today. Until next time, have fun treasuring our amazing universe and Creator.
Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. Revelation 4:11.